What's up, guys? It's your boy, the essential John L. Crossfire, aka the real main event, aka the Rogue Soldier, and today you're about to learn firsthand just what it's like to be caught in the crossfire. But above all else, prepare yourself, because in this very moment, today, right now, you are about to be caught in conversation. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 62 of Caught in Conversation. As always, I am your host, the essential John L. Crossfire, and I'm in a pretty good mood so far today. It's about 11:30 a.m. on Saturday morning as I record this, and last night, the Parramatta Eels got a fairly decisive victory over the Manly Sea Eagles. Things are getting pretty tight heading into the finals in 3 or 4 weeks' time. Wasn't pretty, but still decisive nonetheless. On the other side of things, however, Mrs. Crossfire isn't too happy with the NRL results right now, of course. The Sydney Roosters and Brisbane Broncos game that happened this past Thursday, the Broncos going down 2 weeks in a row in fairly dominant fashion against them, unfortunately. Hopefully that does change for them next week and going forward, except for round 24 when they do come up against my Eels again, but... Talking about Rugby League, though, for those of you that saw my post on Instagram, both my copy of Rugby League Live 4 and my gaming headset have arrived earlier this week. Super excited for my headset specifically to get here, because now I'll be able to stream on YouTube and Twitch with much clearer audio. I'm thinking about doing some more WWE 2K22, which I did in my test run. And as I've said in previous weeks on the podcast, maybe some Hot Wheels Unleashed, and I'm probably going to do some Rugby League too now that I'm starting to get the hang of the controls again. Took me a couple of days, but I'm slowly getting there. I still need to get a capture card and a PS2 to HDMI converter before I can run old PS2 games, before I can do Here Comes the Pain and SmackDown vs. Raw, etc., etc. I might even do an old Simpsons hit and run. That was an idea that myself and Mrs. Crossfire bounced back and forth between each other the other day, which would be a pretty fun thing. But yeah, let me know what you guys want to see going forward, because I'm hoping to get more frequent out, and probably at least, obviously, I don't know when I'll be doing it just yet because I haven't started, but when I do start doing it, I want to stream once a week once I finally get into the swing of things, one day a week when Mrs. Crossfire is at work. But nonetheless, the song of the week this week is Fever by Citizen Soldier. Yet again, another banger from their upcoming album Scarecrow. This is again in their fight against the stigma, against mental health. This is actually one of my favourite songs of theirs that they've released so far, period, including, all of their albums and singles from the beginning of their music to now. It's a fantastic song. There's some really great screams in there as well that they just hit your soul, if you will, and it honestly, it gave me kind of like Linkin Park vibes, if you will, to be honest. But remember, as I always say on the podcast, when it comes to mental health and all of that jazz, it's not weak to speak. It is okay to not be okay. But the song of the week for this week is Fever by Citizen Soldier. Seriously, go check it out. But last week, as I record this, of course, we had SummerSlam. And I want to thank those of you that tuned into my Twitch stream, my first ever Twitch stream. And of course, the couple of you specifically that did interact with me during that stream, of course, Samuel and my youngest bro, T-Dog. Shout out to both of those guys. Thank you for bearing with me. In hindsight, I've made a mental note to not have the TV as loud next time, but I digress. Overall, I went 5-3 with my predictions. It was technically 6-3 if you do want to count the whole Seth Rollins, Matt Riddle kind of altercation that they had. But nonetheless, we kick off the show. Bianca Belair defeats Becky Lynch to retain the Raw Women's Championship, which was a correct prediction. Unfortunately, it has come out that during this match, Becky Lynch did actually suffer a separated shoulder, so we're sending all our well wishes to her. But kudos to her to fighting through that and finishing the match despite the injury. After the match, though, I absolutely lost my mind. We had the return of Bayley, which I did predict, but something I don't think anyone could have predicted was having Dakota Kai and Io Shirai, now known as Io Sky, by her side. Dakota Kai specifically had me popping like a mofo because, one, I'm a mark for her, and 2, as people will remember, a few months ago she was released due to the whole, budget cuts, brother, but she's back here. Triple H very much flexing his newly acquired behind-the-scenes power, it seems, bringing back one of his own, if you will. Of course, Dakota Kai was pretty much one of the staples of the women's division in the black and gold era for NXT. This does make you wonder, who will he bring back next? Who's going to be pushed next? Of course, there's even more rumors flying around this week. They've become even stronger that Karrion Kross it's inevitable that he'll be making a return. And I'm still hoping on a personal level that we do get Johnny Gargano coming back to reunite with Tommaso Ciampa. And Ciampa in his own right got some really good shine on this past week's Raw. He won a triple threat match against Dolph Ziggler and Chad Gable before then going on to defeat AJ Styles, and is now the number 1 contender for the WWE United States Championship. And he will be facing Bobby Lashley for that championship on this coming week's episode of Raw. And they actually showed a really great video package as well, showing the history and the importance of the United States Championship on this week's Raw. So Triple H, again, his fingerprints, his DNA definitely all over these shows already. But match number 2 for SummerSlam saw Logan Paul defeating The Miz. Correct prediction, and as much as I hate to admit it, Logan Paul was very, very, very impressive in this match. People are saying that he was more impressive than Bad Bunny was in his foray. I personally wouldn't go that far, but I may be biased because I do truly think that up until this point, Bad Bunny is the greatest celebrity crossover that we've had so far, from everything that he was able to do bell to bell. But yeah, Logan Paul, fantastic showing. Hurts to say, but nonetheless, it is what it is. Of course, you got to give kudos to The Miz for doing a great job of holding it all together as well. Match number 3, Bobby Lashley defeats Theory to retain the US Championship. Spoiler alert, seeing as how I was just talking about Ciampa challenging for it this coming week, my bad. But this was a pretty short match, but it benefited both guys because of that, in my opinion. Both these guys did their job perfectly. Lashley, looking very dominant, and Theory, with all of his antics, still making himself look like an absolute star, even in defeat, even if it was a, somewhat quick defeat. Correct prediction for that one as well. Match number 4 saw the Mysterios defeat the Judgment Day. Correct prediction. This was probably the only match that kind of felt like filler. It kind of just felt like it was there, to be honest, up until Edge's interference at the end, where he came in to help the Mysterios get the win. But Edge's entrance alone is worth it for this match, and I'll always love, the Brood's entrance, and I love the whole hybrid thing that Edge is doing of all of his gimmicks now. It's really well done, and completely unrelated to the actual show, but Edge's new shirt, the tarot card looking shirt that he has on WWE Shop, is fucking dope as well. Match number 5, Pat McAfee defeats Happy Corbin. This was my first incorrect prediction of the night. This match was a bit of a mess, but honestly, in all the right ways. Corbin is a tremendous worker, in my opinion, but of course, character-wise, he's more of a kind of a brawling style, and Pat McAfee, who's very green in his own right, is more of a showboat. So it's a bit of a clash of styles there, which, it is what it is. In my opinion, styles make fights, but it's just kind of, it didn't mesh here per se in this particular situation, but in a good way. It was more of a knockdown, drag-out brawl, while, Pat McAfee was kind of throwing out some, pizzazz, if you want to use that word. But Michael Cole and Corey Graves, especially Michael Cole in this match here, and the main event later on, but they were absolutely fantastic on commentary. It's really refreshing to hear Michael Cole just doing his thing, showing that he is actually really good at his job without Vince McMahon screaming in his ear every 5 seconds behind the scenes. The story was told beautifully in this one, though. I'm glad that they did touch on the fact that Corbin and McAfee did used to be roommates back in the day when they were playing football together. The finish was a little bit awkward, but Pat McAfee did manage to readjust himself in midair during the Sunset Bomb that did get him the win. Pat McAfee now undefeated on the main roster at 2-0. Of course, he did lose to Vince McMahon at WrestleMania, but in kayfabe, that was an unsanctioned match. Match number 6, the Usos defeat the Street Profits to retain the WWE Tag Team Championships with Jeff Jarrett as the special guest referee. Another incorrect prediction there for me. This was a pretty good match, but definitely nowhere near the caliber of the match that they had back at Money in the Bank. That was one of the best matches that I've seen all year, regardless of promotion. Still lots of drama here. A couple of spots where you believe that both teams were going to get the win. My only issue, and I think my real issue, that kind of, I don't know if you'd say put a damper on this match, but it brought it down a level, it's just my opinion, but having Jeff Jarrett there as the special guest referee, and it basically ended up just being a hometown pop of sorts, and that was literally it. It didn't really benefit the match or the story. On the SmackDown prior to SummerSlam, you have Jeff Jarrett accidentally, wink wink, being super kicked by the Usos, and then it almost happens here again in the match, but Jarrett manages to defend himself, leading to a false finish for the Street Profits, which in theory, it was great because you had you on the edge of your seats. You thought the Profits were going to win, but then in the end, when you think back, when it's all said and done, he really contributed nothing to the actual finish, which then does make you question to an extent, why was he there? And then at the end of the day, you could say, hey, maybe as a fan, I should just enjoy it instead of dissecting it. But I'm just thinking back to it. If Jarrett was going to get involved, you should have had that spot be it. You should have had the Street Profits go over. And then in a way, it might be predictable to an extent, but the Usos, who have had this extremely dominant run, it gives them an out for losing. And they, as the heels, can be like, no, they didn't beat us. You cost us the match, blah, blah, blah. As the super cheesy babyfaces, the Street Profits, they want to, get up and they want to prove themselves. They want to prove that it wasn't a fluke. They want to prove that, even though the match was kind of handed to them, that they can beat them. And then they finally go on to get a decisive victory. They being the Street Profits over the Usos in the UK. But I don't know. Nevertheless, I did still enjoy the match. It wasn't as good as the Money in the Bank match. But the Usos and the Street Profits, they're really starting to get almost Usos and New Day type chemistry, and I'm still holding out hope. And I'm still holding out hope that we eventually get that triple threat on a big stage where it's Usos, Street Profits, and New Day. Maybe I'm biased, but I still really want to see all three teams in like a ladder match or a TLC type environment. But match number 7, Liv Morgan defeats Ronda Rousey. Correct prediction, but not without some shenanigans. Ronda Rousey has Liv Morgan in an armbar, and then the replays show after the fact that Liv Morgan actually tapped out before the 3 count on Ronda's shoulder was made. So Ronda technically the winner, but unfortunately the referee didn't see it. So in the record books, Liv Morgan picks up the win. And maybe this is why they didn't go super shenanigans and, fuckery with Jeff Jarrett. But I feel like the solution there is don't have the matches go back to back. And that's just me as an opinion. That's just me being an armchair booker, but I don't know, but yeah, Ronda seemingly turns heel after the fact here. She attacks Liv Morgan and the referee. In kayfabe, WWE has handed her a fine and a suspension. All in all, though, I think the finish here was executed absolutely beautifully, but it does make me even more mad at the way that they did handle Liv's cash-in back at Money in the Bank, where I still feel like they made her look a little bit weak, because even in victory, she's hung in here with Ronda Rousey, for the most part, in a straight-up singles match where they're both fresh, right up until the finish. So I feel like it would have made even more sense to have her cash-in be even more dominant, because then, in a way, they've almost gone like a tit-for-tat kind of scenario, but it is what it is. It's interesting that they've done it that way. I guess, you've got to protect Ronda to an extent, but Liv Morgan picks up the win. At the end of the day, as I said, correct prediction. And then match 8 / the main event, we have Roman Reigns defeating Brock Lesnar in a last man standing match to retain the undisputed WWE Universal, or the UWU, Championship. Incorrect prediction, but Jesus Christ, what a match. I thought that Austin Theory, or just Theory, was going to come out, cash in, walk out with the championship. But, it was what it was. The match here, it's just a perfect example of why I love professional wrestling / sports entertainment. It had all the hard hits, the drama, and just absolutely over the top, like there's no tomorrow. Brock Lesnar and his tractor went viral, that so much so that even non-wrestling fans were making memes and TikToks and Instagram reels about it. And the clip at the start of the match where Brock threw the microphone and Roman caught it has kind of gone a little bit viral as well, so I love that. But my favourite one so far is that Kenny Chesney's "She Thinks My Tractor's Sexy" is being played in the clip of Brock and his tractor all over social media. And those that actually did watch my Twitch stream, they would have seen that as I was watching this live in real time, I was actually singing that song. So that gave me a little bit of a chuckle. I almost made it a song of the week here for this episode just for laughs. But yeah, Theory tried to cash in, was taken out by Lesnar. I'm really hoping that when he does cash in, he is successful. And I still think that there will be a loophole, that it's revealed that it's specifically just for the WWE Championship to separate the titles again. But I have talked about my theory on that until I'm blue in the face. But all in all, honestly, SummerSlam was a great show this year. You can tell straight off the bat that Triple H's hands are well and truly on it. And I don't think, there's a lot of people that have still been saying that, Vince is still secretly pulling the strings. I don't think after seeing SummerSlam and then seeing this week's Raw, I don't see how you can justify, that conspiracy theory. But I guess it is what it is. I don't like rating shows per se, but honestly, I'd have to give this a solid 8 out of 10. It's probably the second best show, at least within the realm of WWE, that they've had behind night one of WrestleMania this year. It's just a fantastic show. Just absolutely bonkers. I 100% recommend. Even we saw Kat Dennings, celebrity, say, "Oh my God, I just watched SummerSlam. I think I'm loving WWE," because it was such a good show. And hopefully now that, Vince McMahon is, quote unquote retired, we can start getting more people back, because a lot of people, I know they're yearning for the Attitude Era and this and that. I still think the Ruthless Aggression Era shits all over the Attitude Era, but I'm hoping that, with Triple H in charge, and it goes back to being a little bit more gritty, but still really within the realm of the drama, over-the-top theatrics. I feel like with Triple H in charge, we're going to start seeing a shift. People are going to start becoming fans again, and, it's probably not going to get to the height that it was back in the 90s when it was WCW versus the then WWF, but I feel like we're on the right track here, and maybe I'm just being a mark, but I really cannot wait to see where this continues to take us. But yeah, solid 8 out of 10 for this show, in my opinion. The match of the week this week, and it's gonna be that match. It's gonna be Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar in that last man standing match from SummerSlam 2022. I just can't stress how crazy this was. As I said, even casual or non-wrestling fans would probably enjoy, even if it's not the full show, they'd enjoy this match. Just solid hits, Brock lifting up the ring with a freaking tractor, Roman beating up Brock with Theory's Money in the Bank briefcase, Paul Heyman doing a table bump. It was just fantastic start to finish. Both dudes have been built to be indestructible, and they looked even more so. Even Brock in defeat somehow made himself look even more indestructible than he's been built in the last, 5-6 years. It's just absolutely insane. I'd go as far to give this match the chef's kiss. Just absolute thing of beauty. But again, the match of the week this week is Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam 2022. And now I'm going to move on to the back end of this episode. I've been so focused on trying to get the Twitch stuff set up, and honestly, I'm just trying to get a chance to relax when I can, because recovery's been a bit more hectic than I was expecting, and I've somehow found myself more busy than I could have anticipated, and I didn't really have a chance to kind of, put a format together outside of the SummerSlam reactions, and I felt like it would have been a disservice to you guys to put together just another 10 to 15 minute long episode. But I've received a question, however, that helps me with that. I received a question from Samuel Beaton. Shout out to Samuel for the second time in this episode, and thanks again for joining in my Twitch stream while I was watching SummerSlam. But he's asked me about the Forbidden Door, and he's asked me specifically, he says, do you think the Forbidden Door should be more commonplace in professional wrestling, or would that jeopardize the companies involved? The short answer is absolutely yes, I think it should be. The long answer is I think that the Forbidden Door, if that's what we're going to keep calling it from now, while it shouldn't be left wide open, I feel like it should 100% be left ajar. Now, this is just my opinion as always, and at the end of the day, despite never having my own wrestling company or running a show, these are dreams of mine that have quickly become goals that I am genuinely looking at in the hopefully not too distant future that I'd like to, do. So I'm looking at it from a realistic angle, at least. Again, in my opinion, I feel like I am, but it's obviously going to be a bit of give and take. You need to know what both sides are looking to get out of it in the long run. For example, look at the way AEW handled the NWA and Impact Wrestling relationships, respectively. I feel, on paper, AEW should have got both of them more viewers, and because they were smaller, they were getting a bigger benefit out of it, which is just like, okay, it is what it is, right? But in the long run, and I hate using this term because it's overused and quite frequently misused, but in a lot of aspects, and especially Impact Wrestling specifically, I feel like AEW kind of buried them. And again, that's just my opinion, but I feel like at the end of the day, you look at the presentation that Mickie James, as the Knockouts champion, and by proxy Impact Wrestling, as a whole got in one night from the WWE, as opposed to that whole run from AEW. And in some aspects, maybe it's apples and oranges, right? In terms of this, because WWE has far better production. You guys can argue about the quality of the content back and forth until you're blue in the face, WWE versus AEW, whatever. It's all subjective, that's fine, but it's a fact that WWE is at the top of the mountain from a production standpoint. But nevertheless, they did make Mickie James and subsequently Impact look like $1 million in one night. And a great example, I think, to use for me would be to say, look at the way Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling had their relationship a few years back when Ring of Honor were really at arguably their peak in time. Both companies helped elevate everyone involved, no matter whether it was an ROH or a New Japan ring. Every single person on both respective rosters come out of every show 99.999% of the time looking like $1 million, regardless of who was on top, who was on bottom. Didn't matter. And then even look at the one-off with New Japan and WWE, specifically NXT. Tyler Breeze, even in defeat, had his stock go up through the roof after working with a legend like Jushin Thunder Liger. Now, this is kind of a rant, and, it's going to be a great way to close the show, though, I feel. And I'm really glad that you asked this question, Samuel, because when I say I want to run shows myself, I don't just say that lightly. I mean, everyone and their dog that is a professional wrestling fan, they've done their own fantasy booking, of some sort, but every card that I've ever wrote outside of, the Markapalooza kind of stuff here in the pod, and then, obviously, stuff when I'm playing video games or whatever else, but every card that I've ever written down has always been how I would book something realistically if I had the funds. And I'm not thinking millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm thinking to myself, no, I'm picturing this like, okay, it's a small indie company that I am running. Who can I afford? Blah, 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 right? And I look at this like for, in real life, ICW Australia is always going to be my home promotion because they gave me my start. And as a result, I'm always going to be loyal to them. But I'm absolutely loving what Slam Pro Wrestling is doing in the ACT as well. And I think it was episode 18 when I did my first proper Q&A episode alongside Mrs. Crossfire. Joel Southgate asked me my thoughts on the Slam Pro Wrestling League, and as naive as it may sound, I love it. I'm a huge fan. I hope I can go watch a show eventually because to me, the more wrestling, the better because there's something for everyone when there's more content out there to an extent. And the reason I bring that up is because in that same episode, I got asked, and it might have actually been you, Samuel, that asked this. I can't remember off the top of my head, so if it was someone else, my sincerest apologies, but I was asked, as a wrestler, should you work as many places as possible, or should you just stay in your little bubble? And I feel like it's the same principle, right? If a promoter or a trainer, which I've had experiences with this thing where they try and tell you, you shouldn't work elsewhere, then they can get themselves absolutely fucked because that is a load of bullshit. Now, if it's for your well-being or someone genuinely has a bad reputation, then look, maybe they've got genuine advice. But there's so many people out there that say that if you work for this company or if you train here, you won't be booked here and you won't be booked there. And it's just, it shits me to tears. And I understand that no matter how much we squash it, politics and professional wrestling is never going to fully go away. It is what it is. I accept that. But if we can minimize it, just as much as we possibly can, I would be so ecstatic for all the guys and girls in this country, all around the world, just in the business of professional wrestling. And my fantasy cards that I have done, which, will hopefully become a reality sooner than later, who knows, but they have people from just about every state. Now, obviously, I'm trying to look at this from a realistic angle, wouldn't be able to have them all at once because funding, I'm never going to have hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I'd love to have people from Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, and a couple of the various promotions up in Queensland, all under the same roof. And I would definitely recommend my guys and girls, if I was running shows, to branch out, hit up other promoters. You do you, because just let them do their thing, man. Like, I don't know. Like I said, it's kind of spurred off a rant, but I feel like that kind of, in my mind, that answered the question. But I think, in conclusion, go check out what I said. Go check out, if you guys haven't that are listening to this, check out the whole, couple of years. Like, there's a lot of content. It'll take you a while to get through, but even if you just watch the special events or the pay-per-views or whatever, where Ring of Honor and New Japan were working together, it's just fantastic stuff. But I definitely think that the Forbidden Door is definitely a good idea, but obviously, like everything, within reason. Kind of like drinking, do it in moderation. But I don't know. I think it is. If you guys agree or disagree, as always, hit me up and tell me how, why, what, who, etc., etc. But I don't see why it's a bad thing if everyone involved has good intentions. And on that note, though, before I wrap it up, I am planning on doing a full-blown WWE versus AEW Markapalooza card at some point, hopefully sooner than later. But I think I will wrap it up on that note. I managed to squeeze a couple of extra minutes out of this episode with your question, so I do thank you for sending that in, Samuel. But as always, thank you guys for listening. Remember to check the links in the description. My link tree does contain all my social media, including my newly made Twitch channel, my merch, and even my Amazon wishlist if you're feeling a little bit generous, as well as any and all upcoming events that I have a hand in. ICW Australia does present Insanity in 2 weeks from now as I record this, and it will feature my dudes, my homies, Barry Blake and Big James, formerly James Hellfire, as well as the current CPW Inner Suburbs champion Jackson Thornhill will be floating around as well. Plus the official in-ring debut for ICW for young Zack Striker, who I will be keeping my one good eye on from afar. The song of the week was Fever by Citizen Soldier. The match of the week was Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam 2022. I am the Essential John L. Crossfire, and you were just caught in conversation. She thinks my tractor's sexy.